Hey folks. The largest explorable world that we've ever seen in the Zelda series came through Tears of the Kingdom, an expanded and built upon version of Hyrule that was first seen in Breath of the Wild. It's genuinely massive, but something else Tears of the Kingdom expanded on from its predecessor was the characters and their backgrounds. We meet lots of newcomers to this world, and can learn some pretty interesting stuff about them, from hot Zonai researchers, to extravagant fashion designers. But the most interesting of all for me are the likes of Pen and Yona. Because you see, they've both travelled to Hyrule from distant lands outside the kingdom that we explore, confirming that there is indeed other life still out there. We'd heard hints and details from the past about invaders from out at sea, but beyond that, we had no confirmation that more existed beyond these borders and in this day and age. Tears of the Kingdom confirms that there is more out there. But how far does this potential go, and just what exactly are these unseen outsides of Hyrule? Be sure to go and grab yourself a snack and drink, folks. Subscribe if you aren't already, it'd mean the world to me. Drop a wee like down below, and without further ado, let's get into this one. We learn in Breath of the Wild that at some point in history pre-Calamity, 100 years before the game takes place, that one of the Akala Citadel's purposes was to see oncoming invaders and defend the kingdom. Invaders from out at sea. Telling us that out at sea, there is more. Over the high cliffs of Hyrule, we can also clearly see more of the world, hinting at more life. But we never had anything more solid than these two hints indicating at life beyond Hyrule. It's a safe assumption to make, but not something we actually got much information on. That was until Tears of the Kingdom came out. As mentioned, there are new characters that beg questions as to where they came from. Were they already here and we just didn't see them? Surely not for everyone. I focused on Yona and Pen in the intro, and for the reason that they're the two most likely to definitely be from distant lands. Yona herself is even confirmed to be from somewhere else through her character profile, stating that she's a royal Zora from another domain. Not the Zora's domain that we know, but where is this other domain? There's only one here in Hyrule, and she's definitely new. So somewhere out there is another domain. We can assume that wherever this domain is, it's not the only thing out there. Presumably there's whole other regions with towns, cities and whatnot. Another map essentially. Now, the thing with not knowing anything about what this domain looks like, what it's surrounded by, and how everything works there, is that the possibilities are essentially endless. For all we know, this distant land could be nothing like Hyrule. There might not be another castle in human majority. It could be somewhere primarily inhabited by the Zora and or other races. There's also the chance it's literally a domain in the middle of nowhere, kind of like Dragon Roost Island in the Wind Waker being a home for the Rito, but it's more fun to imagine stuff around it. We can assume that wherever this domain is, that it holds contact with Hyrule Zora's domain. Unfortunately, nobody talks about this in the game, so there are no hints as to which direction it's in. My best guess would be that this unseen Zora's domain is somewhere out in one of the many directions at sea. I say this solely based on the fact that they could swim to and from these domains across the sea. Whether the other domain is actually built in the sea or somewhere on land, we can't say, but it's somewhere outside of Hyrule, confirming some sort of unseen area. As for Pen, he's just as intriguing when it comes to the unseen outsides of Hyrule. He's a Rito, but looks different to the Rito seen in Hyrule, as in the bird that his character design is based on. The Rito of Hyrule are parrot-based in terms of design. Pen is based on roughly a pelican and possibly some other birds, indicating that he's from somewhere else, paired with the fact that he can fly and thus travel a lot easier than the average Hylian, especially over obstacles such as, say, a massive cliffside or large body of water, and it'd make perfect sense for Pen to have travelled from somewhere outside the Kingdom of Hyrule. Now, whether this place is in the same region of the world as our unseen domain, we can't say. For all we know, they're completely different directions, but there is always a chance. Something really interesting to mention regarding wherever Pen is from is that Cass from Breath of the Wild could be out there. The fan favourite bard Cass is missing in Tears of the Kingdom. However, nobody hints at where he went, not even his own family who are still in the game come Tears of the Kingdom. We know Cass loved his music, so perhaps he travelled to wherever Pen is from, possibly another Rito settlement to play music and or learn about music, with Pen going the other way to work with a newspaper company in Hyrule. It's unknown, but I do have a video going deeper into the mystery of where Cass went if you want to check that out. Links below. It's really hard to say when you know so little about something so big, or at least potentially big. Pen makes two characters that appear to be from outside of Hyrule, adding more to what is unseen to us. There's also more debatable characters as to if they came from out with Hyrule, as it's technically possible some of these new characters did exist, but just weren't seen in Breath of the Wild. I'm talking about the likes of Cece and Taro. Cece is a fashionista based in Heiteno. She makes incredibly unique but stunning designs based on the new mushroom craze. You'd think that somebody with such an open and extroverted personality would be known, but we don't meet her until Tears of the Kingdom. We don't hear of any Hylians travelling from further lands, so I assume that she was already here. We just never met her in Breath of the Wild. Taro feels like a similar case. It's odd though, admittedly, as they're both such unique characters that you'd think would have been known if they were already here in Hyrule, and if they were new, as in had travelled, that it'd be mentioned. Perhaps this should just go down as video game logic, but we have to still recognise that there is a possibility they, and others new to Tears of the Kingdom, could have travelled from distant unseen lands. To add a little more to the point of making this video, other than recapping and giving my thoughts, let me ask this. What could this sort of lore building for characters mean going forward? Not specifically Yona and Pen, as I don't imagine that they'll return in the next big Zelda game, as we look to be moving on from the Wilds era. But generally speaking, what does building lore like this potentially mean for future games, as the capabilities for making Zelda games, how big they can be, and everything that can be packed within them? Does building background lore such as characters being from distant and further lands open up a realistic possibility that we as the player could travel between the main setting of Hyrule and these further lands to actually explore further into details like these? It's awesome that the developers build lore for characters in this way, and it'd be even more awesome to look further into it. I think on Nintendo's next home console, which the next big Zelda game will end up being on, you'd assume that it'll be able to provide a lot more in terms of the game's contents. The size of the world and the amount of content within can definitely be increased. So yeah, I could totally see us being able to travel between larger regions and maps, similar to how we can travel between the surface, sky and depths in Tears of the Kingdom, but rather than layers of maps on the y-axis, we'd be exploring distant lands on the x-axis. I think it's entirely possible that this could happen and make lore building like this go even deeper, but as most things right now, it's a case of having to wait and see. It's a cool thought, but for now, it remains nothing more than that. Thanks a ton for watching. If you enjoyed, then be sure to subscribe for more fabulous Zelda content, and also drop a wee like down below to help support the channel. What do you think is out there beyond the borders of Hyrule? As I mentioned earlier, I've talked about this sort of thing before, so I don't think I'll be discussing it again in terms of this version of Hyrule, unless there are some new developments, but that seems pretty unlikely, considering we won't be getting DLC for the game. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. A massive thanks goes to all of my amazing channel supporters for the financial backing of my channel, making videos just like this all the more possible. If you'd like to help back my channel and get yourself a weekly inside scoop, name in my videos and a shout out when you join, then check out the supporting links below. You can also find my social medias down there if you'd like to follow me. Oh, and hop in the Discord server if you aren't already. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.